oilseed rape, this glorious yellow crop graces our fields between the months of April and May, creating a patchwork of shapes across the landscape. On the 15th of April, the truly fantastic hill fort at Oliver's Castle was a setting for the first Wiltshire Crop Circle of 2007, and indeed of the entire country. It was an early start to 2007, however its location positioned directly over the top of the Olivers meant that it was completely hidden from view and was only spotted by pilots from the local area. Comprising of 7 arcs and over 300 feet in diameter, it was the largest crop circle designed to be discovered in oilseed rape. At this particular time of its growth, the crop can reach over 4 to 5 feet in height, making access rather difficult at times. Thankfully, this time it wasn't a problem and work could be carried out with relative ease. My time spent within this vast formation was extremely informative. While photographing many parts of its design, it suddenly dawned on me that a number of its arcs had radii positioned well within the standing crop and may have indeed encroached onto the hill fort itself. This indicates that the circle-making force is not just defined within the area of the formation itself, it has knowledge of the crops surrounding the design to create these enormous arcs. On further analysis, the geometry indicates that it was based on the 4:8 divine ratio of the Vesica Piscis, also known as the Eye of God.
Well, you certainly need working clothes for oilseed rape. I've just come out of this magnificent crop circle here at Oliver's Castle. It has to be regarded as one of the most significant events we've had from any previous season. The sheer scale and magnitude of this circle belongs to a much later time in the season, and the fact that it appeared in oilseed rape makes it even more magnificent. But what's important about this formation is that it's not what you see, but what you don't see.
Clearly it demonstrated that it was far more important for us to discover the hidden elements of its design than just viewing the finished work within the field. It is just part of the bigger picture. It wasn't until the 18th of May that we were to witness the second major formation to grace the fields of Wiltshire. The anticipation of the first barley formation is tangible, and we weren't to be disappointed at Morgan's Hill. Once again, its location was extremely remote, positioned on the very top of the hill. The circuit makers were testing our knowledge of the landscape to find them this year.
Well, having looking around this formation, it appears to be one of the biggest formations I've actually seen, very close to the Stuart Dike path, which you can actually see in the distance to my left here. And this makes this whole thing very interesting because it carries on this association between these ancient sites and crop circles.
It was good to see the circle makers recognising the importance of Dike. This 5th to 6th century barrier was built by the Celts to keep the Anglo-Saxons at bay. The star formation, as everyone quickly named it, was very well received. Indeed, the barley crop was still very immature, and its clear definition within the crop was quite a surprise, as barley tends to recover rapidly within the month of May. I took one last look at the Dike, as this long barrier was a monumental task for the ancient Britons. These latest events in the fields certainly bring us closer to our ancestors. The month of May was certainly becoming extremely challenging, not only from the point of view of trying to reach the locations of these formations. This particular one at Winterbourne Monkton was a half-a-mile walk from the roadside, but also from the farmers' reactions to these events. Certain formations were being cut literally within hours of them forming. This one escaped by the skin of its teeth, although its charmed life within the field allowed us to witness a throwback from the recent seasons, certainly with the time portals from 2006. We can clearly see the association carrying on the theme in 2007. So what is the importance of the design reoccurring again and again, and indeed from the years of 1995, 1999 and in 2001? The time portals may be demonstrating that our understanding of time and reality could be shifting into a completely new paradigm. As the month of May was drawing to a close, this extraordinary formation formed on the flat fields just outside of Yatesbury. Its necklace appearance was hiding a profound encoded message, with also very unusual features to its positioning within the field.
What I love about this formation in Yatesbury Field is that the fact there are many questions to be asked about it. The fact that it's a coiled loop, or what I like to call a coiled necklace. There are over 50 circles on this, but it also appears to be missing circles on it as well. I'm also walking in these half-moon circles which cut into this trackway here. Now, did it get all this wrong, or was it purposely done? The fact that there are many circles missing off this coil makes it very interesting indeed.
The missing circles are part of this representation of what is known as the celestial hierarchy, the source of the divine, love and joy living in harmony with the earth and with all other beings of creation. Could this be a possible strong connection to the Christ consciousness on the earth? A powerful message indeed. Yet as the weeks rolled on by, other interpretations came forward. One particular anomaly were these two circles merging with the natural path of the earth within the crop. It was as if the circle-making force had no knowledge of these features interrupting its canvas. Other fieldwork was also being carried out on this day. The scientific side of the crop circle research is always being painstakingly carried out behind the scenes, with soil and plant sampling taken and transported for analysis, primarily within the United States. A resemblance of the ancient symbol appeared very early within the notorious East Field near Alton Barnes. On closer inspection, it included more than one symbolism within its geometry. Its closing representation was of the triquetra, which is part of the central design. This system was later used by the Christians to represent the Trinity, Father, Son and the Holy Spirit. However, the Celts also used the symbol before the Christians. To this day, we do not know the full implications behind this. This striking design, set high on the hills overlooking the town of Pewsey, was a clear and concise representation of the globe split into 16 sections. Fourfold geometry was extremely popular by the circle makers in 2005, and again its presence here demonstrates that as of yet its importance hasn't been realised. Are these powerful messages ultimately intended for us or for something entirely different? These are answers we seek every year to understand their purpose within the fields, to take with us into the future. If this design reminds you of something, it does have similarities to the logos used within the media, with the Vesica Pisces playing a dominant role within its geometry. Clearly this ancient symbol is very important to the phenomenon, and its presence appears time and again within the latest designs. The four quarters are beautifully proportioned to the overall globe. Inside the formation, the flattened sections of crop mirrored its overall geometry, sectioned into 4 quarters themselves. The overall effect from the aerial shots was certainly impressive and created a 3-dimensional view of this highly unusual design. The English summertime was now becoming extremely inclement, making our life very demanding to capture these designs within the fields. This particular one below the White Horse of Alton Barnes was at a time of persistent days of rain, making it virtually impossible to get them on the ground. This design astonishingly included 6-fold geometry with a powerful connection to the earlier Eastfield formation, making them brother and sister, as one could overlay each other with both of them fitting exactly. This resulted in representing the 10 heavens, as the agnostics believed that there are 10 layers that define our being. Are we being shown a path to achieve total oneness with God? The fields below the Westby White Horse were synonymous with the very early crop circles back in the early 80s. 20 years later, and the phenomenon decided to place its latest creation on the very top of the hill, situated next to the huge quarry. Its location was extremely well shielded and well away from the normal fields in which we would expect crop circles to appear within. Because of that, its exact positioning was very hard to find. Hardly any aircraft fly this area, so it came as a great surprise to finally locate it on the ground. Its design certainly had echoes of the formation that appeared on Furze Farm in 2005, with its snaking pathway meandering down a central spine. If ever there was a crop pattern to capture the imagination of the public, it was the incredible design at West Kent Long Barrow. It was a picture into another world that transcended one's thoughts into different avenues of perception. By that I mean that the makers of this remarkable glyph intended the viewer to be drawn into the design by the use of one-point perspective, with what appeared to be these 6 doors or openings, 3 each side of what resulted in a corridor. The fascinating aspect was that it included many layers of interpretation. This is something not new to the crop circle phenomenon. However, the West Kent formation took on a power of its own as to what it could ultimately mean. As the days rolled by after its creation, many theories abound as to its meaning, from the Assyrian in Egypt, one of the oldest surviving temples in the world, to the innocent world of children's stories from Lewis Carroll, as Alice from Alice in Wonderland collects the key to unlock the doors within the diminishing corridor. Is it possible that these interpretations are indeed metaphors for unlocking the doors to our own minds, as we stare at the picture and wonder if our imaginations can make a landscape? Many a time have I spoken about the power of place, as West Kent Long Barrow is notorious for the strong earth ley energies. The famous Mary line runs directly down the axis of the barrow and would have a major influence on the atmosphere of the barrow itself. Indeed, this field beside this ancient site was hit once before 3 years ago in 2004. Again, I had similar feelings relating to these 2 formations that appeared beside the Long Barrow. With Silver Hill as a backdrop, you couldn't help but feel inspired in 2007. This delightful formation in such an idyllic setting below Golden Ball Hill included startling information regarding theoretical time travel using what is termed a ring hole within the scientific community. The small rectangular appendage coming off the outer crescent apparently represents some type of shielded craft entering the ring hole. On the other side of the design, we can identify what are clearly two angular horizons. These act as a lens to allow the craft to reach enormous speeds near the throat of the ring hole, theoretically allowing time travel to be experienced. Extremely deep to comprehend, but there it is, staring up at us from the field. The question we have to ask is how anyone could have known this information enough to create such a design, or indeed anything. Is the message here trying to advance our minds to comprehend these realities we could possibly experience in the future? This season was to prove very difficult for the video team due to the bad weather and other factors outside our control. So it was decided to concentrate our limited time to the filming of the formations in preference to bringing you my personal field reports. Within the early hours of July the 7th, 2007, an event took place within Eastfield which set the record for the largest formation ever to appear in this vast field. It also raised so much controversy over its possible filmed creation in the early hours that it has surpassed the controversy that surrounded the creation of the Oliver's Castle formation in 1996. I would say that this is our new Oliver's for 2007. What happened 11 years ago below the hill is still being argued today, and indeed this 2007 event may also rumble on for years to come. The unfortunate aspect to this piece of video shot this season in the early hours of Saturday, July the 7th, was that the crucial piece of footage when the actual event took place is too dark to enhance. Perhaps over the coming years we will eventually be able to enhance it enough for all of us to finally know the truth. The sheer scale of this formation cannot fully be appreciated from these images due to its unusual positioning within the East Field. On the ground, you could not see from one side to the other due to the field's undulations, and indeed it takes second prize to the amount of circles discovered in one formation, only surpassed by Milk Hill in 2001. There were over 160 circles making up this design, which on further research shown to represent the Om. This is the symbol of the absolute in Hindu. To explain this symbol in a nutshell, we have to quote from one of the most important Hindu scriptures, the Bhagavad Gita. There is harmony, peace and bliss in this simple but deeply philosophical sound. By vibrating the sacred syllable Om, the supreme combination of letters, if one thinks of the ultimate personality of the Godhead and quits his body, he will certainly reach the highest state of stateless, eternity. Powerful words, and more importantly, what power do these formations take on within the fields, if indeed this is the representation? What effect does it have on the individual? These are questions which have been raised many times, although my experiences here suggested that it was euphoric in nature. Many people were enjoying this space, and it had the atmosphere I had not felt for quite some years. It was like coming home, a warm and comforting feeling. Many of the features I have witnessed in the early 90s had returned in 2007. Whatever created this formation, it will certainly live in the memory as one of my best times I've experienced within the formation over the past 7 years. A fascinating event occurred close to the New Forest of Savernake. Resembling the transmigration ladder of the soul's pilgrimage from its early existence to paradise, its ancient proportions are indeed extremely similar to the labyrinth markings found within many medieval cathedrals throughout Europe. Another question is, why is this formation divided into 3 parts? Can we be looking at the representation of the Trinity, a Christian doctrine which the soul's path is interconnected with? So why would the circle makers show us these types of symbols? We have seen from the previous formations from 2007 that there appears to be a direct and a far more powerful set of designs which are clearly trying to raise the consciousness of the viewer. Our civil liberties are slowly being eroded away by the powers that be, wanting us to stay in the world of materialism and greed. Perhaps the phenomenon is a doorway for us to release us from these old ways into entirely new concepts of living. During July, we started to witness many unusual, although familiar designs, such as the one at Honey Street near Alton Barnes. And this quirky little design appeared to be very attached to the ancient tumulus. This is certainly something we have seen before, 7 years ago in 2000, in the famous formation that encompassed the mound with its 4 quarter circles at Everley Ashes near Pewsey. What is now regarded as the most beautiful creation of 2007, the obvious butterfly was mesmerising to look at and quite clearly masterful in its construction. Because of its remote location and the attitude of the farmer owner, access was very difficult. However, its beauty can only be really appreciated from the air. The butterfly itself universally symbolises the soul, perhaps having some connection to Eastfield and Savernake Forest. It also represents the Mother Goddess, and with powerful connection to the natural and supernatural worlds. The 2 antennae circles are almost exact mirror images of each other. In fact, the entire formation is a mirror image, with the left circle laid counterclockwise and the right clockwise. This is also the case for the 2 other outer circles on each wing. It's a marvellous example of the circle maker's work within the field, not only from the point of view of geometry from the air, but also from the ground. These features have been witnessed from recent seasons. The bird or moth from 2006 at Ovington, including strikingly similar features to its wing structure. Clearly the circle-making forces in the area have their own style, carried out with such panache. From the ground, we can witness again the same details across its design. Returning to the butterfly, the same construction methods are there for all of us to see. It was hard to beat its sublime proportions as the season progressed. We thought our trip to Uffington was an indication the circle-making forces had shifted their location. This wasn't the case at all. We found ourselves back in the Autumn Barns area to film this retro-looking formation and this peculiar-looking duck design near Ramsbury. It helps to have a sense of humour. A little bird told me that one. It's not very often that you have the chance to witness formations within rare crops. This particular design appeared in oats, a crop that is rarely grown within Wiltshire. At Wilton, we see a classic eightfold geometric formation. If you imagine a link between all the other outer circles, you can visualise an octagon. The octagon itself contains powerful mystical properties with its proportions, and was used in architecture for hundreds of years by many cultures. The floor construction was a delight as we witnessed some astonishing details within the central and outer circles. So why are we witnessing geometry of this nature within the crop circle phenomena? I feel it is no coincidence that these dynamic shapes are being used to magnify their power on this beautiful hilltop. As the season progressed, the formations were becoming even more complicated. This particular formation at Stanton St Bernard has a multitude of different parts to its general design and appear to be organically grown out of the crop. On the very same night as this one appeared, another circle formed with similar properties. The Martinsale Hill event was positioned well away from the normal locations in which crop circles appear in Wiltshire, located on the very top of the hill with commanding views over the Pewsey Vale. This design certainly had echoes of the Etchell-Hampton formation from 25th of July 2004. And the incredible design at West Stowell on the 20th of July 2003. As we scan the landscape from the air, other smaller and challenging designs were appearing along our route to Chute's Causeway. This complex event was to be found in a completely secluded area surrounded by trees, which made it very difficult to locate on the ground. A classic fractionalized five-fold geometric pattern with uncannily similarities to the stunning Koch fractal in 1997. Many years have passed since we witnessed these patterns in the English fields. We found some remarkable floor details within the star designs. In fact, the entire formation boasted some very impressive multiple layering throughout the pattern. A vast amount of crop was flattened to make a formation of this nature, which can really only be appreciated from the air. A fascinating story arose around this formation as a tourist had shot a video of an unusual light within the same field as the Chute Causeway formation. We were lucky enough to view the footage, and it appeared to resemble a self-luminous orb that came out of the crop in an arc and disappeared back into the standing crop. It was only 50 yards from the formation itself and was probably one of the most impressive pieces of footage we had witnessed. Many other people in the same field also witnessed this astonishing event. This is probably the most photogenic formation to have appeared in 2007. There was just something about it that worked. It's all about proportions, and indeed Sugar Hill didn't disappoint. Indeed, it shouted from the treetops that it wanted attention, and boy did it get it. It also released the largest amount of theories about its design, published on the Crop Circle Connector website. One rather fascinating idea was its uncanny resemblance to the Metatron's cube. Metatron is the name of the angel in Judaism and supposedly forms the cube from his soul. The Metatron cube includes all 5 Platonic solids in such a way that the solids exist in volumetric 3D space. So are we witnessing more than just a two-dimensional design within the field? Are there unseen elements in their geometry which we have yet to discover? Is there somewhere an unseen hyperdimensional space that exists around these formations? It could be just one part of the picture we are viewing. Perhaps we need to expand our minds to take on these new concepts. A design appeared in the mysterious circumstances in the picturesque Pusey Vale below the Pusey White Horse. An unusual story arose out of its appearance in the field. A local jogger who was on a routine run along the top of the hillside stopped at her normal location, literally overlooking the field, as it's a local beauty spot. She claimed that at 8:03 AM, whilst resting for a well-earned drink, there was no formation in the field at that time. 1 hour 45 minutes later, while driving her son past the field, they couldn't believe what they were seeing. There was this dramatic formation in the field. What are we to make of this? This has happened before to hear of daylight sightings, although it is extremely rare. As the season was drawing to a close, designs were still appearing around the landscape. This one at Westwood showed similarities to the time portals of 2006 within a neat geometric pattern, It was a lonely soul, visited very little and short-lived. As we entered the final days of the season, with an increasing amount of crops being harvested, the Stanley St. Bernard Formation raised the Mayan connection once again. Its simplistic design turned out to be the Mayan symbol for the number 6. The connection took us straight back to the Silbury Hill Formation of 2004, which encoded the clear periodic conjunctions of Venus with our own Sun, suggesting around 8.67 years from its appearance of August 2nd in 2004, providing a date of March 28th, 2013. The transit of Venus encoded into the Stanley St. Bernard will occur 292 days earlier on June 6, 2012. Once again, at the very end of the 2007 crop circle season, we are being shown this important date. If you look back at the 2005 season, the messages were just as powerful at Wayland Smithy. The Mayan influence was at its height at the end of 2005, and this binary code design provided dates in a hexadecimal format, which is the modern computer code. Ancient calendars merging with modern technological codes was extraordinary to experience. Not long after the first Wayland formation had been found, the message continued with the second just a few fields away. The Mayans predicted the end of the fourth sun, the period we live in now, and the beginning of the fifth sun in 2012. They believed a new civilization would be built from the old, where we would meet the masters of the stars. The last of the season's great designs. The six-fold geometry formation provided one last opportunity to view this circle maker's work with an extremely ripe wheat. In fact, the six-fold design is actually cubic in its symmetry and has strong connections to the Sugar Hill Formation. On closer inspection, each one of its triangular sections is a cube with its corners cut away. This could possibly be a calendar date, and also has connections with the Metatron's cube. (2007) turned out to be a really remarkable season for the sheer variety and versatility that was presented to us by the phenomenon in the fields across the ancient landscape. We leave you with some of the highlights that made this 2007 season so very special to us all.